Hey there, welcome to the Alexa Z Show, because life should be fun and meditation should be easy. In today's episode, with the help of Sarah McLean, the owner of the McLean Meditation Institute and my personal teacher, and a woman with an unusual and exciting background, we're going to demystify meditation. That's right. There are so many brands and types of meditation out there, it can be downright confusing. The important thing is just understand a bit. Do not make it too hard, and most importantly, do not delay your practice. Without practice, you are missing all of the amazing benefits of meditation, and you don't want to do that. Sarah is joining us from Santa Barbara, California, and she will tell you her journey to demystify meditation. She's going to tell tales of her time in the Army, in an ashram in India, and travels on a 9-month mountain bike trek through faraway lands. She's going to touch on many experiences all the way from transcendental meditation, working with Deepak Chopra, to aha moments on a rooftop in Georgetown, D.C. She did all the work, and we shall benefit from all of her discoveries. On last week's show, we talked about 3 things to make your meditation a slam dunk: desire, focus, and a non-judgmental attitude, things I talk about all the time that I learned right from Sarah herself many years ago. This episode is perfect timing because Sarah's going to take those 3 things, go deeper on them while she's unraveling the mysteries of meditation. My suggestion: listen intently, but listen gently, like the awareness of your breath in meditation. You know you're breathing, but get lost in the beauty of its simplicity. Do not control or change, just follow and enjoy. See you in a moment. A show for those who want to meditate or maybe tried, loved it one day, hated it the next, or maybe forgot why the heck they're supposed to do it anyway. Well, you landed on the right show. Do you still find yourself wishing you had more time, waking up tired, wanting to take back what you just said to your boss? Seriously, don't you just want to spend a peaceful, productive day with time left to learn the guitar and start that $1 million side hustle? Follow me at alexazmeditates.com/podcast and let's make it happen. Hey there, Alexa Z here. I am so excited and maybe a little nervous because I've got my teacher on the line. I've got Sarah McLean, who was kind enough to take time out of her busy schedule to help me help you demystify some of this meditation stuff. And the stuff I'm talking about is specifically all the types and brands that are out there. I don't even know whether to call them a type or a brand, but we all know there's tons of names and is it Vipassana? Is it Insight? Is it this? Is it that? Well, I found Sarah because after many years of meditating, I started when I was 17, but I started for one reason. I had really bad panic attacks, and most of you who are listening know my story, but meditation was a pill for me. And that was why I started. And I only wish I could go back and start again, because if I only knew all the doors it was going to unlock, I probably wouldn't have had an up and down practice all day long. So I want to welcome Sarah and just say, again, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little excited. This is just going to be a fun back and forth conversation. And I'm going to start by saying, I'm really jealous because I have a feeling you're in Santa Barbara and it's a lot nicer than the rain, drizzle, and cold here in Annapolis, Maryland.
Well, it is a little bit like heaven on earth. I'm not going to lie. Sorry to make you jealous, but maybe we can practice mudita, which is that sympathetic joy, being really happy for me that I get to live here after trying to get my husband to move here for 17 years. Anyway, it's great. It's great to be here, and Maryland's not too shabby.
No, it's not. And knowing that you're there and that I can visit and I can come and take more classes at your new meditation center makes me super happy. So let's get right into it. And like I started saying, we're going to kind of demystify things. And the reason why, when I was talking to Sarah one day, this came to mind in this specific topic is time and time again, my students and clients or people I meet on the street, they'll come to me and say, yeah, I've been studying meditation. And they kind of sound nervous. And I say, well, what are you studying? And they say, well, I did a Vipassana thing, and I read some Buddhist books, and there's something called insight and a Ziva. And they'll mention a few things, and I'm like, wow, that's amazing. And I'll say, so how's your practice? And they'll either say, well, I haven't started yet because they're waiting to find the perfect thing to learn, or they'll say, well, it's, I do it once in a while, but I better keep on learning until I figure out what the magic bullet is. So Sarah, what do you think about all this? Why is it so confusing?
Well, there's so many different types of meditation, categories, uses for meditation. There's some that are practiced formally, others that are practiced informally. There are those with religious, historical origins. There are others that are used that are brand new, brand names. There are so many based on various names that are in different languages, whether you've got the name for it in Japanese or Chinese or the Sanskrit or Hebrew. There are so many names and so many types. I'm going to share a little bit about my story about how I got into it.
Oh, that's perfect.
And then how I found out I didn't know anything, which is a great way to be. When I was younger, I was in the military. I wanted to be a spy, but that didn't work out. But when you really look back, everything makes sense. I wanted to understand the mysteries of life. Now, I didn't become a spy. Instead, I became a behavioral specialist and started working with the mysteries of the mind and working with soldiers who are suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder and really looking at how we can help them. And obviously, back then, we used to use medication versus meditation. But luckily for me, I was introduced to a body awareness practice. I was sitting outside of a psychiatric hospital. Unfortunately, that's where a lot of those soldiers would end up who are really suffering. And we were sitting on the lawn out there, and one of the male nurses introduced me to a body scan. We were our whole platoon was out there, and we were lying down, and he was taking us from the head to the toes, just letting us relax and guiding us through it. And it was very short, maybe 10 minutes. But what happened at the end was I felt like here I was working with soldiers with stress. I didn't even realize how much stress I had, because the contrast between how I was before I started that practice, 10 minutes later, how I was after, was phenomenal, was remarkable. And it planted a seed for me. And I started to, after I got out of the Army, I started to look into contemplative practices. I had spent a lot of time exploring world traditions, looking for the secrets to life. I bicycled halfway around the world. I was on my mountain bike for 9 months. And I kept looking for the answer. And I found it when I was sitting in a room where I was living in Georgetown, Washington, D.C. I was sitting in a top of a 3-story brownstone, and I was learning to meditate using a silent mantra practice through a TM practice. And again, there was that contrast between how I felt before I learned and then how I felt after I started silently repeating a word that I didn't have any idea what it meant. And again, it was like this moment of, okay, there's something to this. So fast forward a few months later, I ended up moving to a transcendental meditation community where I was in charge of answering the phone and telling people about mind-body health, because I was working with Deepak Chopra, who no one knew at the time, or very few people knew. And people were coming to get some alternative practices and alternative healing because the chemotherapy wasn't working, or they found out they had a diagnosis of Parkinson's, or they were depressed. So I answered the phone, and quite often my questions were, do you meditate? And people would say, yeah, I meditate when I'm watching TV or driving to work or in a shower. And I had to really talk them into learning to meditate, because that was one of the requirements to be there. Now, here's the thing. This was in 1990, and meditation was not a buzzword. Mindfulness, no one talked about. And I had to be kind of an evangelical about it. And so people would come in and I would teach them about it. Unfortunately, at the time, I really believed there was only one way to meditate. Though I had had that great experience on the body scan, I still was kind of drinking the Kool-Aid on the brand name Transcendental Meditation and thought this is the only way. So even when someone told me that they were doing Vipassana or insight or mindfulness or another kind of meditation, I didn't give it much credit. Now, I'm just going to chalk that up to being.
Sarah, can I ask you a little something?
Yeah.
It's funny because I've known you a long time and known your stories, and this is so fun to hear it in order because it's starting to make so much sense to me. Number one, I have a lot of military people in this town and military people that listen to this, and I do want everyone to take note that you were doing that in the Army, and that wasn't yesterday. How long ago are we talking about?
Well, let me just tell you, it was still 1980 or 81. And I'll tell you, but
Yeah, which is fantastic.
Yeah, but it was only done by sort of a rogue male nurse who kind of took us aside and said, let's try this. It wasn't exactly mandated as part of our training. It was just sort of an aside.
Well, and it still isn't, but it's still so interesting that you walked in, thinking you're going to be a spy and you ended up doing something and learning that one little body scan piece. And then from there, you're doing things that a lot of us meditators think, I can't be a meditator unless I do what Sarah does. I need to go, go eat, play, pray, love, and go sit under a rock forever. And you taught me through your experiences that I can learn and I don't have to go live in an ashram for years on end. And I really thank you for that.
Oh, well, you are welcome.
I thank you for doing all the learning for all of us.
Well, I wasn't the sort of the mainstream kind of gal where I just wanted to get married and have kids and, get that job and then retire from that job. That was not my motivation at all. My motivation was, can I find out the mysteries of this existence? What is it that animates all of creation? I know I'm a little weird, but that's just what was true for me. And I just have to fast forward after working and being in the whole TM organization for years. I'm not going to go into the whole story, but you could probably Google it. But down the road, Deepak Chopra and I, along with him, got kicked out of TM. Now, getting kicked out of an organization shows me one thing, that it's exclusive, not inclusive. And how can you get kicked out of a meditation organization? Well, one way to do it is by, changing your guru or changing your job or deciding you want to go ahead and do it anyway, even if someone says you shouldn't. So I'm in good company, though. We both are. There's Ravi Shankar, who he does the Art of Living program. There's a lot of people that have, quote unquote, gotten kicked out. So, that kind of was a warning to me that how can that be it's a great practice, but maybe the organization has something to be desired. Okay, I'm going to go beyond that because you can Google a little about that if you want to. So after I left the TM organization, I ended up going with Deepak out to California. It was, 1992 or 3. And we started opening up a health center out here. And he had to come up with his own practice, which was also a silent mantra practice, not TM. It's got its own brand name, Primordial Sound Meditation, and you can Google that too. But what I started to learn was there are a variety of practices out there, and they all work for someone somewhere in time. Whether your practice is gazing at the night sky, somebody once told me that was how Francis of Assisi got enlightened. I'm sure some of the first people on the planet sat around and looked at after they discovered fire or created fire, started looking at their community fire and the flames that are, reaching into the sky and use that as an object of their meditation. I know in the Zen Buddhist tradition, which was not called Zen before that, it was called Chan in China. I know that tradition, didn't have anything to do with mantras, and it had to do with paying attention to the breath and then counting the breath or asking yourself a koan, a question that stopped the mind. Then, of course, there are walking meditations. There are imagination meditations where you visualize something that you want to have happen or succeed or to cultivate. So there's so many types of meditations. And so when scientists are trying to do some research on it, and I know because I've been a research subject in a couple of studies, they have a hard time, if they are not well schooled in meditation, identifying these various types of meditation because they're not all apples to apples. You might be cultivating an imagination, or you could be transcending the mental activity, and those are not the same thing. So here's a few ways I categorize meditation. There are the types of meditation that are called focused awareness. It's also called concentration meditation, where your single-pointed attention goes on some object, like a sound or an image or a sensation. And then you continually come back to that awareness again and again and again. Like I said, mantra practice, which is silent, repetitive sound, or breath awareness practice. You're paying attention to one thing at a time. Then there's open awareness practices. Open awareness practices are, I would say, advanced practices where you sit down to meditate and you simply wait, or not even wait. You simply respond when a particular stimulus rises on the screen of your awareness. So you're tuned to all sensory input and you've got a panoramic awareness of whatever's happening. Then there are other kinds of meditations, like guided meditations and imagery meditations. So what I learned to do, because after I worked with Deepak for many years, we used to call him Dr. Chopra. I ended up going to India and learning a whole lot more about meditation and the whole guru, a la Eat, Pray, Love, and living there and understanding chanting and devotion and other practices that could be considered meditative. And then after I came out of there, I moved into a Zen Buddhist monastery. I wanted to give up that whole notion of devotion and move into what Zen Buddhist calls emptiness, right? Which is thusness, or that which animates everything, that whole undifferentiated realm. But I don't want to get too esoteric. What I want to share is the basics. Now, you went into meditation because you wanted to get rid of your anxiety. I went into meditation because I had a very stressful childhood and I was suffering from panic attacks too. And I wanted to feel like life mattered, I mattered, and I really wanted to feel a deep sense of love, and I didn't feel anything. So I ended up exploring these various practices and finding there are really 3 basic ingredients to any type of meditation.
Oh, I love this.
First, okay, good. First is the reason you're meditating. That's called in Sanskrit your sankalpa, your intention. Whether it's as simple as I want to get rid of my anxiety attacks or I want to know God. Doesn't matter. That informs your meditation. One isn't higher or lower than another. So that intention, that desire, that's the first ingredient. The second ingredient for any meditation, as far as I'm concerned, is your attention. So it's the type of attention that you can use in meditation. It doesn't have to be superhuman. You don't have to be great at paying attention. As a matter of fact, many people start meditating because they're not so great at paying attention. So your attention should be gentle, non-judgmental. Call it a bare attention. Bare attention, like what you're listening to me with. Kind of witnessing, paying attention, not having a lot of storytelling going on. So that's the second ingredient. It's the same attention that you might be using to gaze out your window or paying attention to your in and out breath right now. The third ingredient, now this is where everything kind of gets differentiated and brand names get developed and religions get developed and exclusivity happens and people start saying theirs is better than anyone else's, is what you're paying attention to. So just to keep it really simple, there are really 3 basic sensory apparatus that you use. It's either going to be something you hear, a sound-based meditation. It's going to be something you see, a visually based meditation, or it's going to be something you sense as in feeling or having an emotion. So let's talk about sound-based meditations first, because I did mention mantra practice. The word mantra means instrument for the mind. Mantras can be written, they can be chanted, they can be listened to, they can be read. But in general, the mantras that you hear about in TM or primordial sound, those are mantras that you silently repeat to yourself. So silent sound is one thing. You think a sound. When I was in the Zen monastery, I thought the numbers 1 through 10. So you can use a sound base where you're thinking a sound. You can use a devotional type of meditation where you're sharing or chanting a sound, like a prayer. Or you can listen to sounds. like listening to somebody else chant. I remember when I was first starting meditation, people would listen to Gregorian chants. Others would listen to the sound of rain on the roof or the sounds of waves coming in and out as you're sitting by the beach or by a creek. So you can use sound as a focus for your meditation, whether you think it, listen to it, or make it. You can use sight as a focus for your meditation, whether you're gazing at an object outside of yourself, like maybe that community fire or the stars, or gazing at an icon. Maybe I know my husband went to become a priest, and he would gaze at Jesus up on the cross, and that was his entire meditation, waiting for him to come down and hang out with him. Now, that's one way to use sight, is you can look at something outside of you. Some people use geometric patterns such as mandalas, or they use, Eckhart Tolle, The Power of Now, talks about looking at a flower. You can use anything externally. You can use Sri Yantra, some sort of geometric pattern, or an icon of any kind. Now you can also use something in your mind's, and this can vary from a shape to a color to a light to a particular visualization of a game, or visualizing a success. You can visualize your internal organs. You can visualize just about anything. So you can use the sense of sight externally or internally. And then you can use the sensations. Now, sensations, I sort of separate them into a few different categories. You can feel a feeling, cultivating a particular emotion such as forgiveness, gratitude, appreciation, excitement, joy, sympathetic joy. So you can use it to cultivate an emotion, loving kindness, or you can use it to feel physical sensations. Now you can use it in terms of movement or stillness. So physical sensations of movement might include a walking meditation, whether you're walking a labyrinth or doing kinhin as in a zendo at a Zen center, or just walking in the woods aimlessly and letting it be kind of an open-ended practice. Now you can also move mindfully in yoga, tai chi, qigong. You can also take a mindful shower. So moving is one way to use sensation, or stillness is another way. So that's one that's probably very common, is to be completely still and focusing on the sensations that are right here, right now. You've heard of MBSR, mindfulness-based stress reduction, which is a series of meditation practices. It's also a brand name of including body awareness practice and breath awareness practices, which are mindful practices. So you've got mindfulness, you've got mantras, you've got all kinds.
Yeah, I love this, but it's funny because as you're talking, I'm thinking, I totally can grab onto it. I'm thinking my listeners might be thinking, okay, I kind of get this, but I'm still like, wait a minute, where do I start? And when you talked about focus awareness and open awareness, I always think of it as a camera. Like, am I focusing in on something? Am I zooming in, or am I taking it wide angle panorama? Kind of, I start with what's easy because I'm a lazy meditator. I want to focus on something. And most people are like, I can't even stop thinking. And we're trying to tell them it's okay. The brain is supposed to think. The body relaxes, the brain starts to think. So having that starting, I totally agree with that focused awareness is fantastic. But I'm going to go back to the three things that you taught me that you just mentioned. And I'm going to simplify them just the way I teach because it just comes to my mind and how you taught me many years ago. And that is going back to, again, the desire, that non-judgmental attitude, and what is that focus? So from a standpoint of I'm walking in, and this is what happened to me. I had studied all kinds of things, but then I was like, should I go for a walk, or should I listen to a sound, or should I gaze at a candle? And I ended up, Sarah, feeling like I've got this to-do list. And that's how I feel like when people bring their apps to me, like, wow, what should I do today? And when I read your book, which I have right here, I own a spa and it's always in the spa. Let me bend over and pick it up. Her book from 2000, I think it was 12, which is called Soul Centered, Transform Your Life, 8 Weeks with Meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I have to say, this became my Bible because I didn't know you then, but I felt like the first thing you might say to me is, why don't you just sit down and shut up and be quiet and close your eyes? I mean, I really felt like you were going to say that to me, and I was going to be good with that because you simplified it for me. And I feel like your stories, your experiences of like, yes, a body scan. Oh, lo and behold, thank God science now says we got a body, we got a mind, and we got an energy system. Thank you for telling us that. And thank you for telling us or teaching us that neuroplasticity exists. Because truthfully, Sarah, I'm sure you agree, that's when it became really popular. It wasn't so weird anymore, right?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I have a lot of thoughts on all of that. Meditation is not difficult, but you do have to set yourself up to succeed. And when I was writing that book, I was really trying to deconstruct it. How do you do it? Well, first off, you have to recognize that most people will say that you have to clear your mind to meditate. Now, I don't know about you, but the minute I close my eyes, my default neural network comes in. I start a monologue with myself, and there's no clearing that mind. But instead, what you do is you interrupt the constant activity of the mind by paying attention to a particular object. So really, yoga, you were talking about, yoga is really about the union of subject-object. Subject being you, your consciousness. Object could be your breath. It could be your body movement. It could be a behavior. It could be a saint or a particular quality of a saint. So yoga means union, and you yoke your attention to something. And that's really what meditation is. So when I was writing that book, it was actually a 10-week program, but then this study came out on neuroplasticity. Neuro meaning nervous system, including the brain, and plasticity meaning plastic or flexibility. And neuroplasticity studies back then, and it was 2012, were showing that, with meditation, the thickening of the cortex can happen. And what's that? It means you have new neuronal pathways, new connections that help you to navigate the world more skillfully. Also, what happens is your amygdala, that reactivity center of the brain, starts to lessen its dominance. So you become much more responsive as the executive functioning of the neocortex starts to be more dominant. And the amygdala, the fight or flight response, becomes less apparent. So you get the spaciousness between stimulus and response, and it shows up in meditation as a state, and then ultimately over time shows up as traits in the brain. So meditation is a practice. And, find the one you like. I used to be very militant. Obviously, I was in the military, and I used to say this is the only way to do this. But I'd say find the one you like and get a rhythm going. The best thing to do, I'd say, is to get up and start meditating right off the bat. Whether you get up, use the restroom, and sit back down to practice, whether you're doing 10 minutes or 20 minutes, get it going first thing in the morning. It's going to start your day off in such a beautiful way. Now, there are so many practices that have been studied. In the beginning, when I learned to meditate, there were like 3 studies out there. One on blood pressure, one on cholesterol, and I think one on diabetes and sleep, maybe 4. Now, it's been studied so much that we're starting to see the various benefits from different practices. So there are practices that keep you very engaged, engaging your direct experience network, which is the opposite of the spaced out default neural network. Those are mindfulness practices. Then there are practices that cultivate emotions like loving kindness or gratitude practices. And then there are practices that allow for transcending mental activity so that you have the direct experience of the unfettered you, the indivisible you, that part of you that exists outside of your roles and responsibilities. So you transcend and dive deep into being. So there's so many meditation practices that have various correlating experiences as well as brain states. So, there's not one size fits all, and there's not one that's better than another. So the seed meditation practice.
So if right now I'm going to sit down, because again, I don't want anybody to get scared. If right now I'm like, Sarah, this all makes sense to me. I'm going to sit down tomorrow. I don't want to read a book. I don't want to do anything. Anytime. I'm going to start tomorrow at 6 a.m. when I get up. What should I do? Give me one thing to focus on. What would you say?
I would say sit down, close your eyes, set yourself up to succeed, turn your phone off, and turn music off. Sit upright. You don't have to be perfectly straight. You can lean up against the headboard of your bed. You don't have to be in a lotus position. Close your eyes, or if you don't want to do that, you can gaze towards your hands or towards the floor and start to pay attention to what is going on. Be the observer. Observe sounds in the environment. Observe sensations in your body. Observe your breath and how it affects the body. See if you can simply be in the observer aspect versus the thinking. So be in the being rather than the doing. Watching, paying attention to, observing without a story, without saying, gosh, I should probably get a chiropractor appointment, or maybe I should be checking my email, or what am I going to wear today? Instead of planning what's happening in the beginning of every meditation, I like to start every meditation with mindfulness, is to be here now. The body's here, your life is here, your breath is here. This is it. This moment right here is it. The only thing that time travels is your mind. So I like to start by gathering myself together and welcoming everything and resisting nothing. After about a minute or two of that, making those micro movements to get comfortable, I start to scan the body. Again, noticing what's here. Lightness, heaviness. What does it feel like to have my hands resting in my lap? What's the experience of the air on my skin or the clothing on my skin? What's this feeling of sitting? What is the movement and the stillness? Is there heartbeat? Can I feel pulsing? Really become curious and start to notice the mundane, the stuff you ignore because it's here every day. Become curious, have a beginner's mind. No meditations are going to be the same. Then choose a focus. Perhaps you want to pay attention to your breath, or perhaps you hate paying attention to your breath. Choose a focus, whether you want to pay attention to sound-based practices, sensation-based practices, stillness practices, or movement practices. You can even meditate standing up. My suggestion is maybe to start with the breath awareness. If you have had asthma or difficulty breathing, you might find it a little difficult in the beginning to pay attention to the breath. And so you might choose, in that case, to do a body awareness. But let's start with breath if you can. Noticing the sensation of the inhale, noticing the sensation of the exhale, noticing the sounds of the inhale, noticing the sounds of the exhale. And perhaps you want to use what's called the relaxation response, a brand name, also a response your body makes.
1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. Isn't that it?
Yes, silently saying the word one on the exhale. You might even say the word, what tends to work out well is saying a word that you don't quite understand over and over again, a mantra like the word Om or Amen or Alleluia, or counting the numbers 1 through 10 in conjunction with your breath. And every time you notice your attention drifting away, which it will, that's natural, it still does for me 30 years later, you bring your attention back to the focus again and again and again. Every time you notice that you're distracted, it's an opportunity to refocus. And that's the training. That's the practice.
There you go. That's the training. Yeah.
That's the training. It's the nature of your mind to think. It's just the nature of your mind to think. So your job is to wrangle in your attention and put it where you want to become what some people say ridiculously in charge of your attention. Your attention is a currency. It's how you connect with the rest of the world. And so to be in charge of it, because only you can be, is going to change your life, truly. Because what you put your attention on grows. Everybody wants your attention, whether it's to get involved in their drama or to sell you something or to get you to do a certain behavior. So what I like to say is start to train your attention by choosing a focus and continuing to pay attention to it. Now, here's the thing. When you drift off, come back. Let's say you're using the word one on the exhale. So we can do it now.
Okay, that'd be great.
Let's all practice for just a moment. If you're not driving, you can close your eyes. You can do this if you're driving. Breathing in, breathing out, and silently saying the word one. Now, we're not contemplating the word one, we're just using it as an anchor. Breathing in again, out one. Breathing in again, out one. Let's do this for another few breaths and I'll stay quiet. So whenever you notice suddenly you're not doing any of that, you bring your attention back to it. And here's the key to that. Doesn't matter how many times you have to refocus. And also do it when you're kind to yourself. Do not beat yourself up. That is not helpful in terms of getting this training. Beating yourself up is a different thing. That is not helpful. There's no research that proves it is. Third, let go of any expectations. You might say, I want this to be exactly like what it was yesterday or what she's having. What happens when you have expectations is you're constantly monitoring the experience, and that ends up making it less natural. The best things in life are natural. Falling asleep, having synchronicities, falling in love, having a creative idea. The more you try to create these natural experiences, the harder it will be. Meditation's like that. So thoughts are going to be okay. Your job is to refocus on whatever object you've chosen. Be kind to yourself no matter how distracted you get. Don't have any expectations and let every meditation be your very first one. Don't try to have a certain spiritual experience because that just keeps you at the level of the mental activity and won't allow for that transcendence of concerns and wishes and memories. And then the last is to, when you're sitting down in the morning, decide how long you're going to meditate for, whether it's 5 minutes or 10 minutes. I was reading a study today. It's 10 minutes that actually starts creating that reduction in anxiety and the training of the brain and the neuroplasticity and the lengthening of the telomeres. It doesn't take hours on end. You don't have to do 8 hours a day for 10 days to get the benefits. You can do just little moments of coming back to this moment. Yoga is all about yoking your attention to this, and even more so, yoking your attention to that which is looking through your eyes. So all meditations will take you there at some point.
I love that. I love that. Well, as we start to wrap up, I want people to know that, in summary, and you can jump in and correct me at any time, is yes, there are many types. Yes, there are many brands. Don't worry about it. And don't feel like you need to study them all and learn them all before you're going to start. What I heard Sarah say and what I say to my students all the time is just get up and start doing it. The best thing about research is when you are your own individual subject. You're your own subject. Just do it. And half the time, other people start noticing a difference before you might even notice it, but it doesn't matter. Be your own personal study and don't think you're doing anything wrong. And I truly believe pick something and just stick with it for a while, because if you switch every day, we have too many things on our plate, too many choices. Keep your choices limited and just enjoy it. Those moments that you sit by yourself, they're probably the only moments of the day you're going to do that. And I use the definition of meditation that came right from Sarah, and it is my mantra, and that is meditation is a practice. It's old, it's new, it's modern, it's ancient, it's all of those things, but it is a training. And just make that decision, make that desire of what you want to do for yourself. You want to calm your nervous system? I'm pretty sure everybody out there wants to calm their nervous system. You want to be more focused and engaged and less reactive? I talk to people every day. Those words come out of people's mouth every day. And I'm sure that's why Sarah was able to connect it in a really simple fashion. And her method, if you want to call it, or her experiences that she has brought together, her experiences of the army and discovering what it's like to become one with your body and feel the sensations and the emotions right here and now. Your body is brilliant. It knows everything that goes on before your mind does. Being able to work with your breath in a mindfulness way, to be able to take that and to slowly grow and maybe bring in other sensations over time, like John Kabat-Zinn teaches in MBSR. It's all of those experiences are so simple. They truly are simple. So I want you all to go forth. Don't worry. But I really do believe, and I have this written on a piece of paper, and Sarah, I don't remember where I read it out of, but one day Sarah, in probably the opening line of one of her books, says, meditation can be easy to learn and do when you are taught correctly. And the taught correctly part is the part I don't want you to get hung up on, in the fact that, oh, I didn't learn the right thing. But learn the way you want to learn. I teach a certain way. Sarah teaches a certain way. Other people teach certain ways. What resonates with you, and just try it. And don't worry, because years and years and years later, I'm still learning new things, but I bring them and weave them back into my core foundation and what is simple, because I don't see life getting any less boring. I don't see less thoughts coming at us every day. If it used to be 60,000, I don't know, I'm sure it's 75, 80,000, and information is coming at us nonstop. Just take the time, dig deep, but do it in a, like Sarah said, a very kind fashion. And that's about all I have to say. This has been a long podcast, and it's been amazing. And I've got notes of 1,000 other things I'd like to discuss with you, Sarah. If you allow me to come back on, maybe we'll pick snippets and do little pieces here and there. I feel like I just meditated and we've been chit-chatting, and I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. And before we sign off, again, I want everyone to know that Sarah's full bio and links to her books and whatnot will be in the show notes. There'll be some tidbits about the show and some other things on, ways to learn this method. But Sarah, is there any parting words you'd like for the audience?
Yes, I would like to share that, don't worry so much. We always say don't worry. It's not so much what happens in meditation that is going to matter. What matters is how the benefits show up in your life, how present you are for others, how kind you are to yourself, how connected you feel to your work or your family. I mean, the benefits show up as you move through the world. So you can have a really crummy meditation according to you, and you'll still be able to change, and you still will get the benefits, and it will help you to become much more aware, activate the qualities of your heart, and be more mindful. So you can really love your life. That's the whole point of this whole thing.
Oh, that's fantastic. I was just thinking, when you started in the military, you said you wanted to be a spy, but maybe what you found was the magic bullet.
I was a sharpshooter. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sarah. Signing off from Annapolis, Maryland. Thank you, everyone, for hanging in there with us, and hopefully you take something magical from it. And I will see you all next week. Later, taters. Peace out.